about to share a conversation with one of our fellows, Jane Marie Chen, who first joined us actually back in 2013 at the Girl Effect Accelerator that we ran with the Nike Foundation. That initiative was focused on supporting adolescent girls living on less than $2.50 a day. And Jane and her co founder joined us. The company that she was running then is called Embrace. And if we fast forward to today, Embrace has literally saved the lives of over 1 million at need infants who otherwise would have died because they didn't have access to a incubator that could keep them alive, to keep them at a stable temperature and in a healthy state. And that's exactly what Jane and her team created. But our conversation today is going to, yes, weave into a little bit of the story behind Embrace, how Jane launched the company, the difficulties, the challenges, the wins, the setbacks, the lessons. But we're also going to explore her story. Jane recently published a book. She's now a best-selling author in addition to an incredible entrepreneur. That book is called Like a Wave We Break. And it is her own memoir on the challenges of the roller coaster of entrepreneuring, in particular when you're trying to solve a incredibly sticky and meaningful societal challenge. Jane has been recognized and won almost every accolade. She's a multiple-time TED speaker. She is, of course, an A Reasonable Fellow. She's a SWOT Social Entrepreneur of the Year with the World Economic Forum. She's a TED Fellow. She's a young global leader. She's been featured in the New York Times and Times Magazine and CNN and ABC and Newsweek, so on and so forth. She has been seen as a powerhouse of an entrepreneur, but I think much more importantly, she is an incredibly graceful and grounded person. There's much to learn from her and her journey. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy our conversation. Well, Jane, we've been trying to schedule this conversation for a while. It's entirely my fault that it's taken a bit. And I want to begin by saying I am so grateful and humbled to have the chance to reconnect with you in this way. So thank you for taking this time.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor.
Well, I think the honor is mine because now I am actually a fanboy of Jane Chen. Well, we first pulled you into the Unreasonable Universe, into the fellowship, I think in 2014 with the Girl Effect
Mhm.
Accelerator.
Yep.
And at that point in time, I was a fanboy, certainly, in the sense of the work that you and the team and Raul were leading with Embrace. And what you were doing to help save infant lives around the world. We will talk about that a little bit, but today I am a newly found fanboy because of the new book that you wrote, your memoir, Like a Wave We Break. And to me, it was one of the most truthful, authentic, sincere, real, vulnerable books that I've read about, the struggles and the light, the shadow, the darkness and the hope and the healing of your journey. And it's such a human expression of that journey that it resonated with all parts of myself, and I'm sure other readers. So thank you for putting that out there. It means a lot to me to have been able to witness your story in that way.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that and for just having been a part of my journey for so
Mm,
long.
mm. It's definitely fun. I'll say too. So, and actually,
Yes.
I want to start with, I'm so curious. Writing a memoir, you went into that. Obviously, you were deep on your journey already, so I'm sure there are aspects that you knew you wanted to write. But what did you learn about yourself that maybe surprised you the most through the process of telling your story?
Hmm. I mean, so much. This
Mm,
is my first book. And so my first endeavor at doing a project like this.
mhm,
And I found the process of writing
mm,
so beautiful
mm,
and so cathartic.
mm,
I think I was surprised by that. I don't know if that's something I found out about myself, but I just found it to be really healing, the writing of itself. And I think it's because writing well forces you to really go into like the visceral aspects of an experience, right? back to being in that moment and the sights and the smells and everything. And so you're pulled back into a moment.
Yeah.
And some of that was really beautiful in this journey. Some of it was very painful. I'm talking about
Hmm.
some very difficult things.
Yeah.
And so there's that side of it. And then on the other side, memoir writing forces you to zoom out to
Hmm.
the 30,000-foot level
Yeah.
and to start to see, how did all these pieces of my story connect? And one of the things that I really wanted to do was to go into the background of my family's history,
Yeah.
which means I'm a first generation Taiwanese American immigrant. And that
Hmm.
meant going into the history of Taiwan and
Hmm.
Japan. I'm part Japanese, understanding like what was the historical context and the political
Hmm.
context that my parents came from that led to the way I was brought up, to who I am today. And so that was surprising to me, was how deep I went into that, and the understanding and the compassion that I have for my family, and myself as a result of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 I'm so curious. Oftentimes, when connecting with founders, we talk about the why behind the company, and in this case, Embrace Global. You've helped save. You and the team have helped save over 1 million infants' lives, and we will talk about that. I promise. But what's interesting is oftentimes when asking founders about the why, they immediately talk about like the global issue that they're trying to solve. And
Mm,
oftentimes there's a much deeper why behind the
yeah,
why. I'm curious if you could articulate, after having, excavated your own story, both so close up and then from that zoomed out
yeah.
perspective, if like really, the why behind dedicating 20 years of your life to Embrace Global.
It's such a great question because I don't think I really knew the answer to
Hmm.
that for the first 10 years of my journey.
Wow.
And I remember people would ask me this all the time, like, "Why did you move to India?"
Hmm.
I graduated from Stanford Business School. I could have gone into a high-paying finance job, but I started this social enterprise. It was very, very difficult, as you know. I spent 4 of those years living in India, and throughout the process, people would continuously ask me that, like, "Why?" I
Yeah.
say, "Well, I wanna save babies,"
Mhm.
and,
Nobody could
you know
disagree with that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
did. I had this fire, this fuel that I knew I wanted to do this work. I knew I wanted to make an impact, but the deeper reason, I didn't know. It was not conscious to me. I felt it, but I didn't know.
yeah,
And it wasn't until Embrace shut down 10 years in, and we can get into that later,
yeah.
but I went on this healing journey. I felt so devastated, just broken. I'd poured my heart and soul into this mission for a decade. And I decided I needed to leave everything behind and go find myself again. And so I went on a healing journey. I traveled the world, traveling, trying every healing modality I could get my hands on,
Such as?
such as everything from, psychedelics to frog poisoning. I burned holes in my leg. I tried every kind of somatic therapy, hypnosis, everything. Every self-help seminar,
Yep,
I could think of or find, and through that process, I was really forced to confront some really difficult things from my upbringing, namely that I had grown up with, a lot of violence in my home, and for so long, I just swept it under the rug, and I thought, "That happened in my past, it doesn't affect me now, I wanna move on," right? But the process really helped me, this healing process helped me understand that it was feeling so powerless throughout my childhood. That's what had driven me to help the most powerless people in the world,
yeah, the
right?
most
That
powerless
deep,
children. Yeah.
yeah, the most powerless children. And it was like I couldn't help myself. And so I wanted to help others.
Mm,
And it both gave me this intense drive to do that work, right? So that fire was real, but it also led me to extreme burnout and to working in such unhealthy ways. And I see this a lot with social entrepreneurs, right? With almost becoming like a martyr
yeah,
for the
for the
cause.
cause. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of it was because I believed in so much in our work, but also my whole self-worth was wrapped up in the mission, and I had been raised to believe that my worth really depended on what I achieved also, and so all of that was kind of mixed in there, just to the point where, like, my work was, I could not separate it from my identity.
Totally right. Yeah. Wow, it reminds me of one of the best pieces of perspective I got, probably around the time we met, maybe 15 years ago or so. One of our mentors was really clear. He said, "Work and worth have nothing to do with each other. Separate them, like separate them." And in that context, he was talking to me about like teammates. Make certain that your team knows that their work has nothing to do with their worth. But
Yes.
it's so true for ourselves. I think especially entrepreneurs who have are put in the limelight. Like I was looking right before our conversation. I'm just going to list some of these off, Jane, because there's more. But you've been featured in the New York Times, Time Magazine, CNN, ABC, Newsweek, a lot of other global media outlets. Forbes Impact 30 Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. You're a TED Fellow. You're of course a Reasonable Fellow. Recipient of the Economist Innovation Award, Fast Company's Innovation Award, recognized by Schwab Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the World Economic Forum. Like the list goes on and on and on. And so the world, right, is telling you what you're doing, in terms of the change you want to have in the world, is worth something that is. I mean, Obama. I think did he hand you an award in person? I remember in the book, or it was
Well,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that didn't even make the list here. So all of that's happening. It was really good advice too, is like never to believe the headlines. But it wasn't even if you believe them. It was that validation that was saying this means you're worth this. And how, what perspective, maybe if you could go back to Jane Chen, who is getting every award under the sun for the work that you and the team are doing with Embrace, what would you want to tell her?
Mm. Oh my gosh, so I love this question. I would tell her, and this is what I tell people now,
Mm,
that you are worth more than the sum of your achievements,
yeah. Amen.
right? And you are worth more than your external successes or failures.
Hmm.
And that I think, yes, it was great to have all those accolades and everything, but also it made the pressure even more intense,
Hmm.
such that, when things crashed and when we just shut down the company, that failure felt even worse in a way because I had been in the public eye and I was known as like the incubator lady,
Hmm.
all of
Yeah.
that. And
The
so
fall was a further harder fall in essence.
yeah, and
Hmm.
it was heartbreaking, and I felt I had never been in a worse place in my life.
Hmm.
I was having severe panic attacks. I was depressed. I couldn't sleep. I was going through a really, really hard time, and it's because my whole sense of worth and identity was so wrapped up. And I think this is an especially pertinent topic right now in the age of AI, as AI takes over more and more of our
People's
jobs.
work. Yep.
Right.
A lot of
So
people's identity. I used to be the
yeah,
one who did this, and now this thing can do it instantly.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. So who are you without your work, without your title, without your purpose? And that's what I had to find out
Hmm.
is who I was beyond all of that,
Hmm.
right? And one of the things I often say now is that we are not defined by our, external successes or failures as much as we are by our values. That's
Yeah.
success,
Amen.
right? So are you living with love every day? Are you giving to others? Are you growing? These are the things we can control,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
You can't control your external circumstances as much as you think you can.
You could, yeah, yeah. It's one big, beautiful illusion.
Yeah,
Eventually, it will catch up to you.
exactly. Exactly. And so when our whole sense of worth is dictated by the external, our identity becomes so fragile and our worthiness rises and falls with each success or failure, right? But when our worth is about our values and the things we can control, that leads to a much healthier mental state, right? And so with embrace, and I know we'll talk about embrace later, but
Mm.
it's like regardless of whether I succeeded or failed, and really what is success or failure? It's this
Yeah.
arbitrary metric that we put out there.
Yes.
Like, regardless of what happened with embrace, what I can say and feel really proud of is I put my whole heart and all my love into that mission.
Hmm.
And that's the thing I feel most proud of.
Very well said. Entrepreneurs especially, I think, and I'm speaking to myself now too. Like, is my coach, I have an amazing executive coach, Robert Gass, and 10 years into working with him, he was like, I finally figured out your problem. I was like, please do tell me. He said, oh, it's like you have a control problem. You think you can control the
You're
future.
like, "Oh, really?"
No, 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 yeah, exactly. I was like, Robert, bullshit. I was like, you're like, I'm the most go with the flow, easygoing, bright side of the situation. You can hit me with a million punches. I'll sleep on the street tonight. I don't mind. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, 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 no. He's like, you actually believe you control the future. And he's like, let me tell you why. I am,
Mm,
and I think he was talking to a mirror of his younger self as well, which is why he could see me, I think, so clearly. But he said two reasons why. He said, one, nothing's happened in your life that shows you have no control. I.e., I haven't had a hugely traumatic event yet,
right.
right? Like my family's still alive. I haven't been diagnosed with cancer. All the things that will happen at some point because a heartbreak is a guarantee of life. The really big ones haven't really happened to me yet,
Mm,
right? And he goes, and the second reason you think you can control the future is you built a career on it. He's like, you went out into the world and you said, we're going to build this crazy thing called unreasonable, whatever this is. And nobody
right.
believed you. And then it happened. And he goes, and
Mm,
society rewards that pattern more than anything else. And so I tell this story often because it was one of the more profound moments I had, but he had me take out my journal. This is like 10 years into working together. He's never done it before, never done it since, where he said, write down what I say. And I'm like, okay, as a good student, like
wow.
I'm going to do it. And this is like an hour into the conversation. I
Okay.
finally surrendered to maybe I have a control problem. And so he goes, first line on the journal he writes, he says, I don't need to give up control. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible. So I write, I don't need to give up control. He goes, next line, because I never had it. I'm like, shit. So because I never had it. And then the next line, he said, my life's work is to learn to give up the illusion
Mm,
of control.
mm,
I am, and yeah, it's such a gift, but it's a constant dance in the world of trying to run an organization that's setting future goals and saying, "Hey, we want to achieve this in the future." Because I think the only way to not give up, or to give up control of the to give up the illusion of control of the future is just to love the present. Kind of to your
mm,
point, but I'm curious in your understanding currently of this idea of control. You said there's all these things we don't control. And then
mm.
you talked about values. Like, what is it that you feel like you do have quote unquote control over, if that's the right word?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things, right? It's our intention,
Yeah.
right? That's what you do have control over. Your efforts, you have control over that.
Hmm.
Um, I think personal growth is just like so core to my life that I get to learn all the time. You have control over that. You get to
Mm,
choose these opportunities to learn and grow. Um, and then this whole idea of like, and really what social entrepreneurship is about is that intention to make impact
hmm,
and
hmm,
that desire to help. And so those are the things that we can control. It's all of our values and the way we show up day to day, right? And when we really focus on that, then of course outcomes are important. Of course it's
of course.
important to set goals, but whether we achieve those or not, look what happened during COVID, a global pandemic. What happened to our goals?
Yeah.
Nothing
Totally right.
went
Totally
to
right. Yeah.
And many people fell into a, like, deep depression or despair
Hmm.
because of it,
Hmm.
right? So we
Hmm.
had to learn, like, what happens when these circumstances occur that are completely outside of our control. So that was and then
Hmm.
the other thing that really teaches me this, honestly, is surfing, because
Hmm.
when you're in the ocean, as you know, you can't control the waves. You can't control whether a wave comes or not. You can choose how you ride the wave.
Yeah. Amen. That's right.
but you can't control the wave itself. And so the ocean has just been another powerful teacher in teaching me what it means to surrender.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is something I've had to learn really again and again. It's a reminder because I'm like built as an overachiever and I want to like achieve these outcomes
Yeah.
and try to control all of that. But leading up to the launch of my book, a lot of friends who were authors were kind of uh, giving me advice and trying to be helpful, but kind of saying like, well, you need to do this and sell X number of books to be a bestseller and try to get this list and that list.
All
And I was
those
like,
things. It's the same thing. It could be the same chase. It could be the
yeah,
exact same chase. Yeah.
it could be the same day. And I was like feeling so like overwhelmed. And so a dear friend came out to Hawaii to do a little ceremony with me, like the month before my book launched. And at that point, I had one copy of the book
Mm.
only,
Wow.
and I threw it in the ocean.
Mm.
And it was this like beautiful act of surrender that I put my heart and soul into writing this book.
And
And
that's the thing.
now the outcome, yeah, that's the thing. And now the outcome is not in my control. And I did it because I really believed it could help others, right? So that
Mm.
intention is so clear to me
Mm.
and my effort is so clear to me. Those are all things that are in control. The outcome I can't control. And so I
Mm.
watched as, I threw it in and the waves actually started carrying the
Hmm.
book.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? The waves will take this message to
Where
where
it
it
wants
needs
to
to.
go. And if in that scenario, because I'm always curious with authors in that sense. I and my wife's writing a memoir
Mm,
as we speak too. I am I am curious for you if nobody read that book, right? Because you just said my hope, you know it can help others, but was the value in and of itself of just writing it? Like if nobody ever read it,
yeah.
would you still feel
Oh, yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, and I encourage people all the time to do this. Anyone who's even thinking about writing a memoir, I say, just do it. Even if no one else reads it,
yeah,
there's such a gift in the process of writing
yeah, amen,
itself.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that I found deeply healing. I would say writing the book was one of the most important parts of my healing journey.
Hmm, hmm. And how cool is that, right? I I mean, it's all the cliches, but they're all true. As
Yeah,
we're slowly
it's
getting a little bit
true.
older, like everything everyone said was true. It's the journey, not the destination, right? It's like enjoy the dance. Like we don't listen to a song to like try to get to the end as fast as possible. We
Yeah,
like
yeah,
listen to the entire rhythm of it. It feels to me what one of the mentors in our community, Todd Park, he said this well. And it resonates with what you're sharing, or I'm reminded of it. He said the two things he feels like he controls is the intent he brings to the moment and the
yeah.
response he has to the moment as it comes back to him, which is very
Yeah,
much what you said about the wave.
yeah,
You can go out there with the intent of, I'm just gonna love this day no matter what happens, and you very well might get rocked. And the enjoyment of that is going to come from how you internally respond to whatever it is.
yeah.
Um, so you've mentioned, so we are going to talk about embrace a little bit here. We're going to embrace,
Yes.
because you said 10 years ago it failed in some ways. You said it closed down, and you went on this healing journey. And at the same rate, I know it's more recent news that you did achieve this
Yes.
really significant goal of over 1 million infant
Mhm.
lives being saved by the technology. So before we go into that story, can you describe to anybody who's not familiar with Embrace Global, the problem other than the really deep why. Now we'll go back to the like more surface
Yes.
but meaningful why it was created, a little bit how,
Yeah.
and what it's done in the world.
Yeah, yeah. So the background of the problem we're trying to address here is 15 million preterm and underweight babies are born every year around the world.
Mhm.
Almost 3 million babies die within the first 28 days of their
Wow,
life.
wow.
And so one of the biggest problems these babies face is staying warm or regulating their own body temperature.
Mhm,
So that's the primary function of an incubator. But incubators are expensive. They cost $20,000 and upwards. They are difficult to operate. They require constant electricity, which
mhm.
is a challenge in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
And so, what Embrace created was a portable incubator which looks nothing like an incubator, looks like a
Yep.
little sleeping bag for baby.
It's very
The
cute.
core technology is, yes, it's very cute, and uses a technology called a phase change material. So this is
Yep.
a wax-like substance that, when melted, maintains 98 degrees for up to 6 hours at a stretch,
The
and it
perfect
stays
temperature.
exactly, so this is what these babies need to be kept at in order to survive.
Hmm.
It stays exactly at 98 degrees for 6 hours, and up to 6 hours, and then you can reheat it, over and over and over again.
Just in
And so you
boiling
just
water or
we provide us a heating unit that goes along with that. Yeah,
great.
the heating unit does require about a 30-minute charge, but what we found in most parts of the world, and many areas that we work in, is that there is intermittent access to electricity. And so there's enough for that 30-minute charge, and then you get 6 hours of stable temperature from that.
Yep.
And so it's a very, very simple technology. We developed it as a student team at Stanford back in 2007 was when we first
Yep.
conceived the idea. And then 2008, I graduated, and the team of four of us moved to India, which at the time was home to 40% of all the world's premature and low birth weight babies.
Wow. 40. That's wild.
Yes. Yes, so 1 out of every 3 babies, and I think the stats have improved since then, but 1 out of every 3 babies at that time, born in India was born either premature or underweight,
Yep.
and there's just a massive problem there, and most of those babies were being born in these village areas
Hmm.
where there were just no incubators accessible.
Hmm.
So that's the technology, that's the problem we set out to solve. The team of 4 of us moved to India so we could be, like, right with our customers and, be where the problem was.
Hmm.
And it, was a really intense journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I saw Rahul, my co-founder, recently, and we were kind of laughing about this, that we took on such a hard thing in that we're creating, not only a medical device, but a medical device for babies,
Yeah.
and then we're doing this in one of the most difficult environments to work in.
Yeah. And for the
We're
most
trying to
vulnerable babies.
for the most vulnerable babies and trying to get this to, some of the poorest people in the world,
Hmm.
right? So it's kind of like you take a traditional, let's say, Silicon Valley startup, and I think
Totally.
what we're trying to do here is like 100x harder
Uh-huh. Yeah.
in a way. And so we got to India and just we had to be very, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and naive. But once we got out there, it was like, okay, wow, we got to do clinical studies. We have to
Mm.
figure out manufacturing. We have to figure out how do we distribute this, right? And ended up having to work very closely with the government. But it was one setback after the next.
Mhm.
And the work was incredibly rewarding. We saved hundreds of thousands of babies over
Mhm.
that period, so it
Yeah.
was deeply, deeply rewarding. And it was so much harder than any of us had ever anticipated.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was so focused on getting us to a finish line that I just, worked, as I said, to extreme burnout. I didn't take any weekends off. I worked 12 to 15-hour days. I think I made one friend the whole time I lived in India.
In 10 years?
Yeah, I lived there for 4 years, and
Okay,
then
4 years, 4 years. Okay, okay, okay.
in
That's
4
not so
years,
bad.
I made one friend, and I just didn't have a life at all, Um, so yeah, it was tough, and we a part of the challenge was like, how do we figure out the right business model? We started
Mhm.
as a nonprofit. As you know, we spun out a for-profit arm a couple years, and that's when we were at the Girl Effect Accelerator. And so figuring out the right business model so it could be financially sustainable, that was another piece of the challenge.
Yeah.
But long story short, just 10 years in, we had faced so many setbacks. We ran out of funding and we had to shut down the company.
And in the book you talk about this, but I think it's worth illuminating. You were also there were so many outs that were, like, so close, and you were so
Yeah.
close to, like, a very significant, meaningful acquisition. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I also think it's really easy, you know, as entrepreneurs to almost count the wins before they happen, and there's a huge
Yes.
lesson in that
Oh my
story too.
Yeah, this happened to us a few times. I'll talk about two big moments. One was pretty soon after we launched the product, we realized the economics of this are not going to work out for us as a tiny company to
Hmm.
manufacture and distribute a single product on our own.
Yeah.
We need the help of a global distributor. And so we struck up a deal with a major, multinational medical device company. They were going to become our global distributors, our exclusive global distributors, and put in the next, $5 million into the company.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so this was like the dream deal,
This
right?
was
Like
the
I
perfect
thought,
opportunity. It's
yes,
perfect for
I
them.
thought,
It's perfect for you.
yes, perfect for everyone. To me, that was the finish line because
Yeah.
then Embrace would have this like huge partnership. Our future would be secure. And so I worked on this deal night and day for like 9 months. We finished all the paperwork, almost done with the paperwork, about a week away from signing.
Hmm.
And then we discovered that the healthcare CEO of this company stepped down,
Hmm.
and
A week away from
a
finishing
week
the
away,
deal.
yeah,
Oh,
and she was the main advocate for our deal. And a few weeks after we found out that news, they called us up. They pulled the plug on everything.
hmm,
So the
hmm.
the whole distribution deal, the financing, everything, like, we had just bet on that, right? I had taken out 2 bridge loans to get us to that
Wow.
finish line,
Yeah.
and at that point, we had about 7 days of cash left in the bank.
7 days.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
and, like, we'd racked up all these legal fee the deal itself just took
Everything.
so much longer to, like, finally execute than we had anticipated, so that's where we're at. And that was, like, the first, huge moment of devastation for me. We all thought we were
Hmm.
gonna have to shut down the company at that
Hmm.
point. We got incredibly lucky. I had met at the World Economic Forum conference in, Davos in Switzerland about 6 or 9 months prior to that. I had sat next to Mark Benioff at a meditation retreat,
As one
and
does. Yeah.
yeah, and there were maybe, like, 9 people out of 3,000 who showed up
Who showed
at
up
this
for that? Wow. No
yeah,
way. Yeah. That
it
says
was a
something
morning
too.
yeah, it was a morning meditation, and we happened
Yeah.
to sit next to each other. And so afterwards, we just chatted, and I told him about the work that Embrace does. He told me he had a personal experience with a premature baby
Mm,
and was about
mm.
to gift $25 million to the Gates Foundation
Wow.
to create a global program on premature births.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so both of us were, like, in
Hmm.
awe at the serendipity of, like, sitting next to
Hmm.
each other in that moment.
Hmm.
And so when this happened, I think this was like, I don't know, day 4 or 5, I emailed Mark and I just told him everything that had happened,
Wow.
and the state that we were in.
And
And
you
he
have like
responded.
4 days left to
Yeah, yeah,
survive in
yeah.
terms of
I
cash
was,
flow.
like, calling every
It was
friend from
over.
business
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
like, everybody, just, like, asking for any amount of investment so we could keep
Hmm.
going for another
Hmm.
day
Yeah.
even. And so Mark responded maybe, I don't know, 24, 48 hours later, and I'll never forget his response. He was like, "Dear Jane, I will fund your company
What?
alone." That's it. It was one sentence,
Oh, how
aloha.
did that's bananas. Okay, did you
It was
believe it? Like, how did that feel when you
I
saw that?
mean, I was like, "Holy shit." It was so crazy, Daniel, because I went from, like, the high of thinking we had completed this
Yeah.
major deal to the absolute lowest point of, like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to shut down the company." Back to this high of, like, "Oh, this investor put us back on track,"
Hmm.
and so Mark came in, and he saved the day, and we had another chance.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's just, like, the ups and downs of
You know,
entrepreneurship.
that is bananas. That's just a crazy story. But everybody talks about this journey of entrepreneurship. The analogy people oftentimes use is a roller coaster, right? You have
Yes.
these huge highs and these huge lows. And I was just feeling into that, realizing, but the trick to a good roller coaster is you're like safe. So it's actually fun,
Right.
no
Good
matter
point.
how fast or like backwards or all those things. I am and I think part of it is it's almost like it's a game. Like so you don't
Yeah,
take it so seriously. I am and you can actually enjoy the
yeah,
downs and the
yeah.
highs. Like I don't know quite the question here, but I imagine in that moment where you were. The low was not fun. It was absolutely devastating. And then that like high was like probably this like level of like
Yeah.
dopamine elation that's also not
Oh, yeah.
healthy. It's probably through the roof. Like how, you know, if you could kind of go back to that version of Jane, like
Mm,
even before you knew the high was that mark was going to come in, and so
yeah.
on, like what would you say to her? Because there are so many stories,
Uh,
and yours,
yeah.
goes there too, where it doesn't. You don't get the high again. Like the low becomes quote unquote the reality. But in that moment, what would you want to go back and tell her if you could?
Oh gosh, I think exactly what we had said earlier. I would just say, regardless of whether this succeeds or fails, you're gonna be okay
Yeah. So
because
then
that
you
does not.
can just
Yeah,
weather it. Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
that because this doesn't dictate your worth.
Hmm. Hmm.
And again, that's my worth was so wrapped up in it. Everything was wrapped up in it. And so it just I took everything so seriously.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was not a
And
roller coaster in the sense of like, "Hey, we're paying to have fun."
yeah, yeah, no, it wasn't fun, and I really stopped having fun, like, a
You
couple
stopped
years
having
into
fun.
it, yeah, because it
Wow.
was like, I took it so everything I took so seriously, and frankly, Daniel, I was burned out by 4 years in living in India those years living in India, I was smoked at the end of that.
Mhm.
Moved back
Mhm.
to the US. We had actually found a new CEO at the time because I really wanted
Mhm.
to set I knew I wanted to take a break, like
That
a
was another,
proper
like, false summit, right?
yeah.
Like, where again, you kind of felt like, "Oh, this is now taken care of. This will be great. I've done my part."
Yes. Yes, yes, and I knew I needed to take a break, but this all happened, the CEO left, we no longer had a global distributor. Yes, we had a lifeline, but we no longer had a solid business plan moving forward, right,
Totally,
without a
so
global
it's
distributor.
still incredibly hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
it's
he stepped
yeah.
down, and the board asked me to step back into the role. And so
Mm.
now I'm back in this role that I didn't wanna be in, and I haven't had a chance to take, like, a proper break, and by proper break, I needed to take, like, a couple months I needed to take a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Like, those years were so tough on my nervous system
Mhm.
that I just needed to do that, and I never got the chance to, and so I came back into the role, and that was the beginning, I would say, of a series of really tough challenges, that ultimately led to the closure of the company
Yeah.
because we didn't have a business strategy, so we thought, "Okay, well, how can we create a sustainable business model?" And at the
Mhm.
time that you and I met was when we launched a for our
The
US
for-profit arm.
consumer yeah,
Mhm.
consumer product arm, and that did well for a while, and then there was a manufacturing error that led to us having to do a recall.
Mhm.
We're back to having to raise money, we're back to having funding challenges, and then ultimately what happened was there was, an acquisition opportunity. So there's a company that came in, they were very interested in our consumer products line, they made an acquisition offer, and this time around, there was, like, a lot of things leading up to this, but this
Mhm.
time around, the ultimate thing that happened was we, signed all the paperwork, and this time
Not
we're
again. Now you
everything's signed.
signed the paperwork.
It's signed. Yeah, this time now we're signed. Every document has been
Oh,
signed,
no.
and this time we're just waiting for the wire transfer, okay?
Hmm.
And when the wire transfer doesn't come through, and long story short, we find out that the acquiring firm is shutting down.
Oh my god. That's so brutal.
So here, so now we're 10 years in, and I'm like, I've
That's
played
it.
all my cards. I've done
Mhm.
everything I can. I cannot there's no way forward, and I'm exhausted, and truth be told, there's a big part of me that didn't want to be doing it anymore at that
Mhm.
point. I'd
Yeah.
made so many sacrifices, and I just, like, but this happened, and, like, I had no choice.
Your hand got forced. Yeah.
Yeah, my hand got
Mhm.
forced, and
Mm.
I
Hmm.
hit rock bottom. Um, yeah, I just fell into, like, a really, really dark place,
Mm.
and I remember someone was asking me, like, what it felt like, and I remember just having these panic attacks, and the only way I could describe it is, like, feeling like I was falling off a cliff constantly, like I was on the edge of
Wow.
falling off a cliff, and it was like I couldn't get through a meal without
Hmm.
feeling like that. I couldn't read a book. that like very simple things became very hard for me.
Mm,
I had no idea that my mind was capable of becoming that fragile, right? I knew
mm,
I was tired and burned out and all that, but up until that point, there was still like almost this sense of invincibility, like I can push through it, I can get through it. And that was my attitude. And frankly, that's what at that point in my life, that's what I thought resilience was. It was grit.
hmm. Just toughen up. Yeah.
Toughen up.
Ignore it. You can deal with it. You'll be fine.
Yep, just push harder, just keep going, and it wasn't until just having, like, a complete mental and physical breakdown that I started to understand that's not actually what resilience is,
Hmm.
and having gone through this healing journey now, what I tell people is resilience is actually about self-compassion
Hmm. Yeah.
and the courage to be kind to ourselves in the face of immense struggle or huge setbacks like this. And there's this incredible body of research now that shows that self compassion actually doesn't make us complacent. It makes us more courageous because we can take risks and fail and know
And
we're
not be
going
a
to be,
failure. Yeah.
yes, and not be exactly, and not be a failure.
Hmm.
Um, and so it allows us to recover more quickly and take more courageous risks and just, I think, lead healthier lives. And
Hmm.
so, in retrospect, like that closure of the company led to me going on this healing journey, and I'm so, so grateful because ultimately that is the best thing that could have ever happened to
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
I could have never seen that in that. If you told Jane of 2018
This is gonna be the best thing that ever happened to you.
there is no way I would have ever, ever, ever believed you,
Did anybody
but
try to tell you that? Did you have
no,
like a sage? No, no, no. You did not have that.
no, no,
No elder
no,
in that sense.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. I remember, I mean, I was like, yeah. I wrote like a goodbye letter to Embrace. I burned it in my garage. I was like, I scattered the ashes in the ocean. Like, I really needed to like part ways and say my goodbye and all that.
Hmm.
But no, no, nothing anyone could have told me would make me believe like this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Hmm. And
And it
yet
was.
here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Which
was.
is
Yeah.
which is so wild. Do you believe in coincidences?
I mean, I've had some incredible coincidences,
Hmm.
including, like, the story of how Embrace ultimately got saved. So I think everything ultimately happens for a reason.
For a reason. Yeah. 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 Well, that can also let you um that belief, if you really embody that belief, can allow you to take the blows with a deeper sense of like, I know this is happening out of a greater
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Mhm,
yes, yes. Now I believe
mhm.
that now because
Mm,
again, looking back at all the things that have happened in my life, now I understand why it did, but
mm.
certainly in that moment, yeah, I I would have
Not
never
then.
believed. Yeah,
Not then.
not that,
Okay,
but now I
so then let's just talk just a little, then we'll separate from Embrace maybe for the rest
okay.
of the conversation, but you just said, part of what gave you this knowing, it sounds like for you, a personal knowing that there aren't coincidences is another coincidence happened that actually led to the rebirth of
Yes.
Embrace. I would
Yes.
love to, walk through that story.
Yeah. So, okay, so I decided I am going on this healing journey. I buy a one-way ticket to Indonesia. I'm like, I'm
As one
leaving
does.
everything behind. Yes, as one does, anyone who's ready to pray love, that's where you go.
Yep.
And so I packed up a surfboard, a suitcase. I bought my ticket to Indonesia. Well, like 3 days before leaving, I turned on Netflix and I stumbled across this film called I'm Not Your Guru. And it's a
It was a
film
great
about,
film.
yes, great film, and it was about Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
and so up until that point, I knew who Tony Robbins was, but I didn't really know about his work. I'd never,
Mhm.
attended seminars, and so I watched this film, and I was so moved. I was just, like, crying beginning to end,
Hmm.
and it's about, his event, Date with Destiny. It happens at the end of every year. He does it once a year,
Yeah.
and at the end of watching, I, like, wiped away my tears, I got out my notebook, and I wrote, go to date with destiny at the top of my notebook.
Wow.
And I wrote that as like the number one thing on my bucket list.
You
And
put
then
it
I
at the
forgot
top.
it. Yes,
That's wild.
put it on the top, even above, go to Indonesia. I
Yep.
like had that. And then I forgot about it. I didn't apply
Mm,
to go. I didn't like reach out or anything. 3 weeks later, I'm standing at the airport in Indonesia. I get a phone call randomly from this man named Jonathan.
mhm.
And Jonathan says to me, I work with Tony Robbins.
Wow.
Tony found out about your company, about Embrace.
Yep.
He'd like to make an investment and he'd like to invite you to Date with Destiny as
But
his
you just
guest.
shut down the company in essence, right? Wow, wild. Yeah.
I had just shut down the company and he was like, Tony wants, and so they invited me to go to Date with Destiny as Tony's guest.
Mhm.
And my jaw just dropped. I mean, talk about coincidence. It was like nuts, like I
And did
yeah,
you
yeah.
did you in that moment, the younger Jane, did you chalk that up? Were you just like, wow, this is a crazy coincidence? Or did you have this feeling of like, whoa, maybe there's like something bigger that's happening here? Like, how did you relate to that?
I
The
still did
scientist
have
or the
this.
mystic?
Yeah, I mean, it was like a
That's
crazy
that's wild.
coincidence.
Yeah.
It was wild, and at that point, I was just being, like, shocked. I remember, like, telling the people around me about it, but I still didn't understand how it was all gonna come together or, like,
Of
what this
course.
was about. And in fact, I was, like, kind of worried because I didn't tell them in that moment. I was, like, too embarrassed to tell him that the company had shut down.
Yeah. Oh, so you went without him knowing.
We had another conversation before I went, and then I explained everything, and I
Yeah.
told him, the whole story.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I didn't know what it was gonna be about,
Hmm.
but I ultimately, did meet Tony. I met Jonathan. I told them everything, from beginning to end, what had happened, the
Hmm.
history, and they loved Embrace. They loved the mission, and they
Hmm.
were like, "We can't let this fail."
Wow.
And so they ended up helping to orchestrate a deal to acquire Embrace,
Hmm.
and they ultimately saved the company,
Yeah.
which was remarkable. And then subsequently, we actually turned it back into a nonprofit
Yep.
and, which was definitely the right choice. Like, actually, after the acquisition happened, COVID started shortly thereafter. So all of our, again, coming back to you can't control
Yep.
anything, all of our plans to, kind of restart the business, find a new CEO, all of that were thwarted. And so we ended up reforming the nonprofit and really focusing on the humanitarian aspect of the organization, which was a relief in many ways. And
Yeah.
since then, most of Embrace's work has focused on getting our incubators for free to humanitarian crises zones.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, places like Ukraine. We're working a lot in Sudan right
Hmm.
now, Turkey, Syria, like all sorts of places. So that's been
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
And we finally reached 1 million babies as of last year, which took almost 20 years, but we got there.
But it's a million babies,
It was
which
1 million
is
babies. It's
so
so
wild.
special. It's so special. And
Mhm.
I had this really special experience in Hawaii last
Mm.
year. The first one of the first babies our incubator helped save was a 2-pound baby.
Mm. 2
Um,
pounds.
yeah, he
Wow.
was less than 2 pounds. He was abandoned on a street in
Wow.
China,
Wow.
and we had donated some incubators to an orphanage in Beijing. So they found this baby, brought him in, kept him in our incubator for weeks,
Hmm.
and he survived.
Hmm.
So 7 months later, I
Wow.
visited the orphanage. I held this little boy in my arms. It was so, so special. And a few months after that, he was adopted by
Mm.
a family in
Mhm.
Chicago.
Mm.
And so Nathan is now 14,
He's
and
14. That is so
I know,
wild.
it's wild. And, last year, at the beginning of last year, he and his family came out here to Honolulu to visit me.
Hmm.
And so I took him to, I took him surfing, and we were catching waves together, and I'm sitting there in the ocean, and I'm looking at this 14-year-old boy and just remembering that moment of holding him
Wow.
in the orphanage in Beijing, not knowing, like, what was tomorrow gonna look like for him,
Hmm.
what what was the future gonna hold for this little child?
Hmm.
And then now fast forward 14 years, I'm in the ocean with him in Honolulu, catching waves with him, like, it was the most special,
Wow.
surreal experience, and it just really,
Wow.
is, like, so much the essence to me of what Embrace has been all about.
Is I felt my whole body is like chills
Yeah.
thinking about that. That moment, that full circle moment when you're out, beyond the break with him, with Nathan. Yeah,
Yeah.
with Nathan. Um, if that moment were a teacher, what do you think it wanted to teach you?
Oh, I love that question. The first thing that came to mind was, like, love is everything.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, that I just the love I felt from him from the moment I met him, the love that not just I, but all of us at Embrace put into, the incubators, like,
Mhm.
all of that love culminated in that moment,
Hmm.
and that's all that
Mm.
matters, you know?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, people who are listening to this conversation, I am I'm sure a lot of people resonate with your story, and I am, that feeling of attaching identity to work or to outcomes or to achievement or quote unquote success, as defined by others in that sense, or culture, or whatever that
Yeah.
might be. I am probably a lot of people are like, wow, I relate to that. I want to go on a healing journey. I want to feel what Jane just said, which is everything is love. I am, and you went on this huge healing journey, and I'm sure a lot of people go in and go, Jane, like what worked, what tactics, like what
Yeah.
thing unlocked, and so on. And I'm just curious how you respond to, people want you to write a blog post that says 4 ways to heal yourself, and I did it. And I'm curious how you respond to those types of conversations. What perspective you can share.
Yeah, well, first, I'm gonna caveat this by saying, I don't think there's ever a one size fits all solution, and it's why I wrote a memoir and not a
Mm,
self-help book, because I
yes,
did not wanna be prescriptive. I just
exactly.
wanted to show my journey and share, "Hey, here's what's worked for me, and,
Mm,
please take from this what's helpful to you." So
mhm,
that's kind of the nature of this book, but I
mm,
will tell you the things that I thought were most helpful, just a couple of highlights.
mm,
1, the importance of slowing down,
mhm, hmm,
and this goes back to what you and I were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, but, I think we live in this world is just go, 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 go,
mhm,
right? And we have these goals and these pursuits, and we rarely kind of slow down enough to just feel what we're feeling, whatever
mhm,
that might be.
mhm,
I worked with this wonderful leadership coach, Diana Chapman, and she would ask me through the years, "Are you willing to feel your heartbreak?"
hmm. What a question. Huh.
Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't know what that meant. For
Wow.
years, I don't think I truly understood what that meant. And then I started to get it, and in some ways I was like kind of forced there because I was in such a low place. But when you
What does it
don't
mean? Yeah, or you're about to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it means just allowing yourself to sit with your pain,
Mhm. Yeah, to not run from it, to allow it.
right? But we live in an escapist society. So when we experience feelings that are uncomfortable, whether it's pain, heartbreak, anxiety, fear, all of it, what do? We go get a glass of wine. We numb
Mhm.
out. We turn to social media.
Right, we go on a run. It could be even productive, right, in that
Yes,
sense.
I
Yeah.
go for a surf, right?
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
we'll do whatever it takes to
To
not
not
be with
face it.
it. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Which means when you do that, you don't ever process it,
Mhm. It's always there.
and
Becomes your
it's
shadow.
always there. Yet
Yeah.
become that's exactly it. It becomes your shadow, and then it shows up in your life in all these sneaky ways
Hmm. Mhm.
because you haven't processed it.
Mm.
So, that's the first thing I really it sounds simple, but what I encourage people is, like, take a moment to just slow down enough
Mhm.
to be with your feelings, to
Mhm.
sit with them. right? And I
Mm.
love what you're doing with the vision quest, or even with like the
Mhm.
silent meditation, these like pauses where we
Mhm.
get to do that is that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
The second thing I'll talk about is the science of trauma.
Hmm.
And I think this is really important because for most of my life, I didn't understand what trauma was. And I know in some ways trauma is a word that like a lot of people are allergic to because it's like it's overused. But it wasn't until I read The Body Keeps the Score that I
Mhm.
started to understand what it is. And for most of my life, I thought trauma was a thing that happened in your past.
Mhm.
So you just keep it there, right? And you move on with your life.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
You're
then,
just like,
this is now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I remember I'd like see therapists from time to time. They want to go into my past and I'd be like, why? Why are we talking about that? It's
That's what all
over.
therapy is, Jane.
I know, I know, I know. But like that's not that I didn't understand that. Um, and so what this book illuminated for me is trauma isn't just about the past. It's about it trauma actually rewires your brain and your nervous system
Mhm.
such that you're bringing the past into the present
Yeah, in every moment. Yeah.
in every moment, and it shapes every part of your life.
Hmm.
And so it's really important to be aware of it, to name it, so you know how to address it,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
The other thing about trauma, just from like a neuroscience perspective, is that trauma is stored in our limbic system.
Mhm.
That's the part of our brain responsible for feeling and for connecting.
Yeah.
It's not stored in our thinking brain, our neocortex, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, talk therapy never worked because
Totally.
that's our intellect.
That was thinking. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's really important to feel and to learn how to feel. And I for like one of my survival mechanisms had been learning how to disconnect from my feelings,
Mhm.
which is why I worked to extreme burnout. I ignored all the signs my body was giving me. I
Mhm.
refused to actually sit with my feelings, and it led me to a really bad place. And so what this means in terms of healing is not just sitting with feelings, but working within modalities that get to kind of these deeper levels of consciousness,
Mhm.
right? And one of the most helpful things for me was a practice called parts work
Mhm.
or internal family systems. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with this?
Mhm. I
Yeah.
haven't done it, but I'm definitely familiar.
Okay, so for those who are unfamiliar with it, just quick note about it. The premise of it is that we all consist of a multitude of parts.
Mhm.
So you, Daniel, might have a part of you that is a perfectionist, a part that is a control freak,
Mhm.
the part that is really hypercritical, right? The part that is like the overachiever, the people pleaser.
Yeah.
And then there are parts that carry more painful emotions like shame or rejection, abandonment, loneliness. And the whole practice is about recognizing each of these parts of ourselves. And rather than shaming any part of these parts or like judging or banishing, that we come to appreciate and have compassion for all of our parts and the
Mhm.
roles that these parts are playing in our lives.
Yeah.
And I found this just so, so, so deeply helpful
Hmm.
because I started to learn self compassion for the first time.
Mhm.
Right? And I
Mhm.
started to see that, oh, this part of me that is like trying so hard and working so hard, again, to the point of burnout, it's trying to protect the part of me who feels like I'm not enough.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's this young part of me from my upbringing that just I never felt like I was enough, no matter how many of those accolades I got
Totally.
or how many babies I saved. There's a deep part of me that felt unworthy.
Mhm.
And so one of the most profound parts of my healing experience was really building a relationship with the 7-year-old part of myself
Mhm. Mhm.
and ultimately being able to say to that little girl, you are enough and you are loved.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with your external successes or failures.
Mhm.
right? And I think that that is the most important relationship that we have in the world is the relationship with ourselves,
Hmm.
because that shapes every other relationship in our lives.
Yeah, well said.
So that's what I see now is like, what would the world look like if each of us felt safe and loved? Like if every child felt safe and loved, and that goes to the inner child in each of us.
Hmm.
And we live in this world today where I see some very wounded people leading this country.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of these men are trying to get their dad to love them,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
that's tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. And so what happens when you lead from a place of woundedness?
Hmm.
You're gonna lead from fear and control and ego, right? Whereas when you lead from a healed place, then you can truly lead with love and compassion and purpose
And trust.
and trust. Yes, trust.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that is the work that I think is so important. And what I'm spending my time on these days is doing leadership coaching and development and helping people lead from that place, because
Hmm.
ultimately I think that creates the ripple effect that truly begins to like change our society in a new way.
Yeah, I think that seems like that's the game. Like, that we're actually playing. Like, that's the real I was slow to, this realization. 100 million people said it before me, you just said it, and but it maybe 5 years ago, I was like, "Oh, wow, we actually really," or I'll speak for me. I was like, "Wow, I actually really make all of my decisions from a place of either fear or love."
Mm,
And more accurately, it's like, "Oh, hang on, I actually am making all my decisions from a place of love or the fear of not being loved." It is all
yes,
love, to get back to your
yes.
point. Having the ability to respond to something, that's a decision. So something hard happens in life, something great happens, like whatever it is, an external thing, it's like how we respond. And I've been playing a lot with, um, trying to listen to my body as an instrument that can help guide. Oh, if you go that
Mm,
way, is that from the fear of not being loved, or is that
yeah.
from the place of love? Because it's not always easy to discern. So I'm curious for like you in your day to day, what does it look like to discern, if you are making a decision or having a response from a place of love or the fear of not being love?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. Well, I really love what you're saying because one of the things I've also been working on is somatic awareness,
Yeah.
right? And your body knows. And
Hmm.
so when I'm tuning into a decision, if I'm feeling kind of some contraction
Yeah.
around it, or, I'll feel like tightness in my shoulders or a knot in my stomach, then I have to like pause and ask,
Hmm.
okay, why is that there?
Hmm.
What am I afraid of? Where is this coming from?
Hmm.
Versus, and this is one of the things I've learned through my leadership coach is what is a whole body yes,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
those are
When
the
your head,
best.
yes, yes. And often those are decisions that are coming from love, but I find it's like
Yeah.
when your head, your heart, and your gut are in full alignment,
Hmm.
right? And you know you want to be doing something. That's how I felt about writing my book, really. Um, then like that's what guides my decisions these days. And anything that doesn't feel like that, I have to pause and ask myself, okay, why? Why am I feeling a
Hmm.
certain way? Does that mean I want to move forward with this or not? So I think that somatic awareness is really, really important. And then really building in those moments of pause
Yeah. So that you
and
can
reflect.
listen. Like sometimes it's so quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's so quiet. It's just like it's a whisper or a
Hmm.
pinch, right? So being able to kind of hone into that and tune into that and honor it, right? And then being able to admit to ourselves that, oh, there fear is present right now, or anger is present. Whatever that feeling is, when we can be honest with ourselves that those emotions are there, then we can kind of see, okay, I'm making decisions as a result of this.
Hmm.
But when we're just kind of like moving so quickly that there's no time to even tune into that,
Mm,
um, then I think you're more at risk of making decisions from the wrong place.
hmm, hmm. It reminds me, that's so well said. That really resonates. Thank you for that. Um, Reminds me, I was having a conversation at a friend's house. You might know Jeff Orlowski. He's a mentor in the community as well. He's an amazing guy, filmmaker, so on and so forth. Anyways, we were talking about flow state, or that was what the table was talking about. And I was so disinterested in the actually the conversation, and I told Jeff afterwards, like, I have no interest in that, because the analogy, which is interesting, that is oftentimes used, and this is my own interpretation of it,
Yeah.
was surfing. And they were like, oh, well, when you get the perfect moment on the perfect wave with the perfect like paddle, and you get up, and then you have to be perfectly present because there's no option. It didn't resonate with me, because I was like, well, that's saying that I can only be in flow state when everything external is perfect. Like, and it's very limited in like my day to day. That just doesn't. That feels kind of controlling in some ways, and kind of masculine in some ways too. And I was like, I don't know why it doesn't resonate. And my friend
Mm,
Jeff, he was like, well, that's because maybe you're starting to be aware of a bigger truth. And I was like, please do tell me. And he said, maybe we're actually always in flow state, and the question is, are you fighting against the current or not?
uh,
And I just so love that orientation. I Because in a similar way, I find, like, yeah, if my body's really tense or tight, and i.e. it's like preparing for battle or whatever that is, when you really tune in,
right.
then clearly it's going against this bigger current. But
Mhm.
sometimes, to your point, the current is so subtle. Like, my
Mm,
wife taught me this. She was like, sometimes you have to
mm,
literally stop and
mm.
just be. And maybe for a year, like,
Yeah,
this may not be 10 minutes,
yeah,
I'm
yes.
and to be in real stillness, because the current can be so subtle that's trying to pull you, that you have to be perfectly still to be able to even feel it. And I hear the reminder of inviting stillness in like day-to-day decisions, when it isn't a whole body yes. Go to pause, go to stillness, to then really hear, where it's pulling you. I think it's a good
Yeah.
reminder for me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and here's the other thing I'll say about that. It doesn't mean that, all of this is not to say that you're just, like, happy all the time,
Of
that's not
course,
what I'm saying, because I
of
think it's
course.
so important, coming back to this idea of, like, feeling pain, to just acknowledge and accept and be with more difficult emotions, like, right, anger and sadness and fear, right? And again, I think we just, like, live in this world, we wanna feel good all the time, but it is
Mm,
important to pay attention to those, because there's so much wisdom in our emotions,
hmm.
right?
Yeah, amen.
Fear, yeah, right? And so fear tells us to watch out,
Hmm.
right? Be
Hmm.
careful.
Hmm.
Anger tells us stop,
Mm.
to set a boundary. Sadness tells us that something needs to be let go of, right? And so how do we honor the wisdom of our emotions?
Well said. Very, very well said, Jane. I love that. I haven't heard. Yeah, that really resonates. Well, when we first spent time together, the Girl Effect Accelerator in 2013, at that time, like entrepreneurs getting coaches, at least in the US, was becoming like a trend. And people were like, you should have a coach. And, and I went out. I met with 3 potential coaches. One of them asked me to be their coach. One of them told me I didn't need a coach. And the other one I had no resonance with. And I was basically like, what the fuck? Like, what is a coach? And then I met Robert Gass, who has been um an elder and an older brother and a lifeline and a coach and a teacher and a mentor and all of these things. And for me, it was so rare, because Robert had, led a movement at one point in time. He had also been the CEO of a company with 500 employees. He's been married for more than 50 years, has a family. So he had lived and embodied all of these
Wow.
things that I related to, instead of, not to harp against it, but being just like a professional coach. And I think it's so rare that you're now stepping into this with the lived experience that you have, is so uncommon for an entrepreneur who has achieved as much as you have, but learned the hard way as much as you have, to then be able to pay that gift forward and show up for other entrepreneurs who may be saying like, "Holy shit! I now listening to this or reading your book, like I need help." Um, and what a gift it is for you to be offering that. Like if somebody does want to work with Jane Chen, I walk the journey with you. How do they get in touch? What's the best way to do that?
Oh, thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm so excited about stepping into this next part of my career, and it brings me immense joy to work with people in this capacity. And I really believe that coaching is just about helping people reconnect with their inner knowingness, because I think we all have that. So coming back to our intuition, right? How do we get back there? And my job as a coach is not to tell you what to do, but to help you reconnect with your own answers. And so I'm just so excited to do this work. And for people who are interested in working with me, my website is janemariechen.com. I'm doing both individual coaching, but also group coaching. And
Mm,
so that's groups of like executive teams all the way up to groups of like 60 to 80 people. And it's my philosophy on coaching is also like bringing together all the things I've learned, both kind of like practical tools and frameworks, but also the things that I've learned from my healing journey
mhm,
to help people, as I said earlier, kind of develop that self compassion and to get back to like the core of who they are so that they are in that state of flow, they are in that whole body yes state, and that they're looking at resilience in a different kind of way, in a way that's not about, as I said, like grit and endurance, but the care that we need to put in ourselves such that we can make sustainable impact over the long run. And so many of us in this
so
work
we can stay in the
especially.
game, and then because
Yeah.
we're enjoying it.
Yes,
Totally.
exactly. Exactly. So many of us, and I see this with so many of my peers in this work, in the social entrepreneurship world, that the work is so challenging. And as beautiful as it is, it's so hard as well. And so there's a lot of burnout. And I think it's so important that we care for ourselves such that that impact we make is sustainable and that we get to do it for the rest of our lives.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Very well said. And if somebody is tuning into this conversation and there's a wow, embrace sounds incredible. And knowing that now it's a philanthropic organization, saving infant lives that are really in need on the front lines. And they want to become a part of that solution. How can somebody team up with Embrace Global?
Yeah, so Embrace as a nonprofit, for those who might wanna make a contribution or, volunteer, it's, embraceglobal.org. We brought an amazing CEO in last year, so I was so happy to get to pass the torch to someone who's gonna lead Embrace to the next level. And the work is continuing, and we're continuing to make just incredible impact around the world. So love for people to get involved with that. And then yeah, for anyone who might be interested in picking up a copy of the book, it's called Like a Wave We Break, and it's available on Amazon, or you can get it in any major bookstore.
And it's really, really, really well written. It's a
No,
really, really good book. Like a Wave We Break. If people want to work with you, either individually or in a group capacity, is janemariechen.com. And embraceglobal.org. Did I get that right? Okay, embraceglobal.org to be a part of the cause. Jane, it's been such a gift to be on this journey with you for more than a decade. And to hear your story almost mirrored back to yourself, but then be able to really see
Mm.
you through that. I will absolutely refer anyone who's interested in going this journey, of course, to you. But I just want to say thank you, not just for what you do and what you've done, but way more importantly for who you are. and how you're showing up now. To see you in this present moment is a real gift. So thank you for the time, and thank you for being you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and it was so lovely to spend this time with you. Thank you, Daniel.